Good day, everyone. Welcome to Teddy and I's show here on WagerTalk TV. I am Minty Betts, and this is Teddy, not Roosevelt, not Bridgewater. Covers. Teddy covers. How you doing today, Teddy?
I'm doing all right. Look, I'm excited about the fact that this is the first week that we've done one of these shows where maybe there actually is some light on the horizon. You know, there's talk about baseball on July 4th. There's talk about NBA playoffs here in Vegas. I mean, it feels like there's movement where there hasn't been movement in weeks past. And as a bettor, I mean, look, we want something to bet on. We want something beatable to bet on. And MLB, obviously we're going to be talking about today, is certainly front and center stage when it comes to what we're excited about here in mid-May. But I'm doing okay, Minty. How about you? I know your umbrella broke. You got a barky Chihuahua next door. There's all kinds of working on your house.
Construction inside. They kicked me out. I'm outside, so hopefully everything goes smoothly. But yes, Teddy, you know that hair salons are open, right? You can get a haircut now here in Las Vegas.
So I was actually planning on it, and there was a 3-hour wait, and I decided I wasn't interested in waiting 3 hours, and I called to make an appointment. He's like, next week. So in the meantime, we'll have a little bit of I just feel like it's the 80s all over again. I can do some tall hair,
All right. Well, let's see.
I want to see you in a beehive. I want to see.
Yeah, maybe dye it like blonde or something. That would be cool. Like frosted tips or something. I don't know. Whatever.
I'm not dyeing my hair. So I had a brief period of time where I dyed my hair because I was trying to be the young guy on a show with an older guy.
Did you just look ridiculous?
No, I mean, I just looked like I had darker hair. It didn't look like I was, but I'm not going to be the younger guy on a show next to some older guy anymore. Now I'm the old guy and the other guy's got to dye his hair.
Yeah, you're the experienced one. Yes. Well, I dyed my hair blonde once and I want to do it again, but I don't want to be, I don't know. It's just too hard to take it. Anyway, the shows that we do on here are super informative 101 shows answering basic questions and any questions you may have about getting into the sports betting industry or betting on a new sport. Today's episode will be top 10 betting tips for MLB, and I miss baseball. And I love betting on baseball because of all the edges you can find in betting the MLB. In a normal season, on a normal day, every single day, there's multiple games a day. So, Teddy, let's begin. Do you want to talk briefly about why it's important for these tips for betting baseball? And it's different from our 101 video, right?
Yeah, I mean, the videos we've been doing here on Thursdays, we gotten great feedback on them. I appreciate all the feedback. We appreciate all the tweets. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Teddy_covers and Minty at MintyBets. But the bottom line is today's show is going to be about beating baseball. We call it top 10 tips for beating baseball. And when I do any of these, I start with a little Google search. What's out there? Boy, I was stunned at how little there is in terms of good information out there for tips to beat baseball. Let's see. There was the big tip was bet against the public, follow reverse line moves, ride divisional underdogs, fade divisional favorites, strategies that are fine in theory, but aren't really going to offer you any practical tips about how to beat baseball. What we want to do is put together some practical tips that will actually help you beat baseball. So let's go top 10. That's what I got. Right. But note that I will not have bet against the public and follow reverse line moves. I will not have ride divisional underdogs, fade divisional favorites. We're going to try to put a little substance into this to give people a little bit of meat on the bone. That said, it's still a betting 101 type of video where beginning bettors, first-time bettors, beginning baseball bettors should all find, I think, some decent info on this video. So instead of hyping it, let's do it.
Let's do it. Step number 1, Teddy. Let's go.
Number 1, and this is crucial for any sport, but in baseball, any sport with a money line, all right, you have to understand math.
Okay.
Flat out. A minus 200 favorite. What does that mean? It means the favorite is supposed to win 67% of the time. If you think the favorite is more than likely to win 67% of the time, you can lay your $2 favorite and find value in that. If the favorite's going to win 75% of the time, it should be minus $3.
Right.
Okay. A plus 150 dog has a 40% chance of winning. If you see a team priced at plus 150 and you think they have a 45% chance of winning, you take the plus 150 dog, even though it's only going to win 45% of the time. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The bettor's got to be right more than 75% of the time if you're going to bet win with $3 favorites in order to earn a profit. That's far greater. We always talk about 52.4%. That's your break-even point, or 52.38. Your break-even point with standard minus 110 betting, standard 11 to 10. That's not the case in baseball. And in baseball, if you're playing favorites and you don't understand the math, and you can win more bets than you lose. You can win 60 or 70% of your bets and still end up not just in a hole, but in a deep hole.
Yeah.
That's the issue with MLB. And of course, underdogs will win less than half the time. Picking dogs that are competitive but not winning outright can leave a bettor with your bankroll spiraling in the wrong direction. So you have to find dogs that can actually win when you're backing the dogs, and understanding the math, the true odds that money lines are offering you. Totals too. Understanding, why the totals are lock in on 9, and 9 is the key numbers for total. When you understand the math, it makes everything else that you do that much easier. And if you don't understand the math, you can't beat baseball. Flat out.
Yep.
Can't do it. Don't try. Go watch another video.
Numbers matter.
You have to understand exactly how often you need to win with any particular favorite or underdog in order to make a profit. And there's charts out there online you can find that are easy enough to convert money lines into percentages. But understanding the concept, when you're betting dogs, you're not going to win half your bets. But the bets that you do win will pay more and pay for the other losing bets. With the favorites, you better win, way more than half of your bets. But even that isn't enough, in order to ensure a profit. So that's my number one tip for betting baseball, for beating baseball, is understand the math behind the money lines, understand the percentages you actually need to win. When it comes to your edges, sometimes, I got this huge edge. I know they're going to win this game. Well, I think they do. They got an 80% chance to win the game. Well, if they're minus 380, there's not a whole lot of value in that. That's where they're supposed, minus $4, they're supposed to be priced. Understand math. That's tip number 1.
Understand math, tip number 1. All right, tip number 2, Teddy.
You got to understand how baseball lines are set. Yeah. All right. Starting pitching is everything in MLB. I went back and looked from last year how many different times you had Team A. It's a 3-game series. And Team A is minus 150 or higher in the first game, and they're underdogs in the next game. Happens all the time. Happens in every series. That's starting pitching. The teams haven't changed. 8 of the position players are the same, but starting pitching is key when it comes to setting lines. For my particular style of handicapping, starting pitching is not nearly as important as the betting markets make it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But when you need to understand how the lines are set, and the lines are set based not just on the teams. The teams are some piece of the equation. The starting pitching matchup is where the real odds changes from day to day in MLB. Starting pitching matchups. So you need to understand the nuance of, this team was minus 150 yesterday. Today they're plus 130. Does the change in the pitching matchup warrant that type of line differential between one day and the next? Because the wise guys, they're really not betting teams. They're betting pitchers more often than not.
Yeah.
I like to bet teams, but again, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, sounds good. So tip number 2, understand how MLB lines are set. Now moving on to tip number 3, Teddy.
Well, of all the sports, when you're betting football, we talk about line shopping.
Right.
But by kickoff on Sunday, if you're making your bets 10 minutes before kickoff, the lines are going to be the same just about everywhere. Just about every shop in football is going to offer a 20-cent line, minus 110 either way.
Right.
Baseball's not like that. There is a huge, huge difference when it comes to betting MLB between one sportsbook and the next. Some books have a 10-cent line, minus 105 either way.
Yep.
Some books have a 20-cent line, minus 110 either way. Some books have a 30-cent line, okay, or higher. I've seen minus 115 both ways. I've seen minus 10 both ways. I've seen minus 105 both ways. If you're going to beat baseball, you better be betting at the shops that are minus 105 both ways. You have to find your reduced juice baseball shops. Now, we talk about the exchanges. And again, the exchanges are not legal for U.S. clients, for U.S.-faced clients. There are ways to get around that. I'm not going to get into that on this show.
Okay.
But the exchanges, the Betfairs, the match books, 1 cent, 2 cent spreads between what you're buying and laying. If you're going to take baseball seriously, like I'm going to beat this for real, you have to find a way to get those and get involved in the exchanges, because that's where you really find the best numbers. And you say, well, what does it matter? Minus 105 versus minus 110 versus minus 115 over the course of a season. Let's say you're not even going crazy in MLB. Let's just say you're making 3 bets on average, 3 bets a day for 100, maybe 500 bets over the course of the season, which is not a lot of bets for a baseball season if you're tracking.
Right.
Okay. And you're like, oh, well, I'm going to make 500 bets this year. The difference between minus 105, minus 110, and minus 115 is your average lay price. The difference between you making a profit and you taking a loss. I mean, it really is that simple. So you have to find your reduced juice baseball shops and bet them.
Okay.
That probably should be number one before understand math and before understand how the lines are set. The reduced juice in MLB. You can't beat baseball betting into Bodog lines. Okay. Can't do it. Just as one example of a bad where the book takeout is higher than it should be for bettors who are trying to make a profit.
Okay. Tip number 3, find your reduced juice baseball shops. Good one. And Teddy would rank it as number 1 too. So moving on to tip number 4, Teddy.
Well, let's talk about the stats that matter. And this is huge. And give me here. Have a second while I have a sip.
Okay.
Just you babble for a minute. I just need a sip here.
So yes. Anyway, you said understanding the stats that matter. Of course, people look at ERA and batting average. What else is there?
If you look at ERA and you're trying to beat baseball, you're going to lose. You look at batting average and you're trying to beat baseball, you're going to lose. You look at win-loss record and trying to beat baseball, you're going to lose. I shouldn't say you're going to lose. They're not predictive stats. They're not stats that will help you moving forward.
Right.
The markets are far more interested in what we call the advanced metric stats. You don't find the advanced metric stats in your local newspaper. You got to go online. What matters? BABIP, batting average on balls in play. For pitchers. That's a stat that's very meaningful. It tells you have they been lucky or unlucky. DIPS, what kind of defensive independent pitching stats. You have fielding and pitching, FIP. You have XFIP, XFIP. You have strikeout to walk ratio. You have all kinds of defensive metrics. I haven't even gotten to the offensive side yet, because really when it comes to the offensive metrics, they're not priced in the same way the pitching metrics are. But when it comes to the pitching metrics, what actually matters are not win-loss, ERA record, etc. It's the advanced metric stats. And of course, if you're into handicapping baseball, you probably already know the sites that you can find these types of stats on. If not, hey, send us an email and we'll be happy. Or a tweet, and we'll be happy to share that with you. But I'm not sending people to other sites at this moment. Just recognize there are stats that matter. Your standard baseball stats for fans, ERA, win-loss record, batting average, whatever, completely irrelevant in the MLB marketplace. The baseball marketplace is all about how hard the balls are hit, not where they're hit. And that's where a lot of the advanced metric stats come from.
Nice. All righty. Tip number 5. Let's go.
Well, you got to give me a chance to sip in between.
You have to sip in between every single
I just talked for like a minute and a half, and you say, okay, go.
Oh, my God, Teddy. It is not like you aren't used to it. All right, well, I'll go over. Tip number 4 was understanding the stats that matter, not just ERA, not just batting average, but what Teddy said. FIP, strikeouts per ball. Oh gosh, Jesus! I wrote so much down. I can't even keep it up. Sorry. Now tip number 5.
That's all right.
The heat's getting to me. The umbrella's gone. The heat's getting to me, Teddy.
And it's only just starting, girl. It's just May.
I know it's only May. It's not 100 yet, but I think we've gotten there one of these days, right?
Sure. We'll be 100 every day within a matter of weeks.
Okay, let's go, Teddy. My makeup's melting. All right, tip number 5.
Number 5, and of all the tips I'm going to give you about beating baseball, this is the key. Ride streaks.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to ramble about totals for a little while here. All right, because MLB totals are probably the single best streaks to ride. Why? Because they're cumulative. Overs beget more overs. Unders beget more unders. But let's start with this. When it comes to streaks, when a baseball team wins 10 straight, they're going to be the lead story on ESPN. They're going to be noted by bettors. The bookmakers are going to notice. The market's going to notice. Maybe the hot team started out, they were minus 140 in the first game of the streak. You put the same 2 pitchers on the mound following 10 straight wins, maybe they'd be minus 150, minus 155, minus 160. There'd be some movement up. When it comes to totals, the general public doesn't notice anything. The national media doesn't notice anything.
You're right.
Bettors you talk to around town don't notice anything. And yet, so number 1, the streaks are rideable for longer.
Okay.
Total streaks. Okay. You get a team that starts cashing overs. True story. Oakland A's after the All-Star break. It's a couple years back. After the All-Star break, I forget, they made some move. I'm like, I'm going to bet them over every game. They did something. I'm like, this team is not what they were. The bullpen was falling apart. Over a 32-game span, they cashed 2 unders.
Oh, wow.
Not unusual. Right out of the break. You know, there were a couple pushes, but I think it was 28-2-2.
Wow.
And at the end of it, their baseline total had moved from 7.5 to 8.
Wow. Not really a big move.
Nobody noticed anything, okay?
No one noticed.
Anything. Now, and it makes perfect sense, okay? We have to talk about the begets, you know? We'll get biblical here. Overs beget overs. Unders beget unders. Why? Teams who are, let's start with unders, all right? You have a team that's struggling at the plate. That's how they're cashing unders. They're struggling at the plate. Though when you're slumping offensively, you're slumping until proven otherwise. You're pressing, you're losing confidence, you're getting out of your normal rhythm. And ice cold bats will remain ice cold until proven otherwise. Teams that get good starting pitching, and if you're cashing unders, you've gotten good starting pitching. Guess what? They're not overusing their bullpens. So their pens are much fresher and better than the teams that are getting lousy starting pitching. So here's an offense that's not hitting, a starting pitching staff that's pitching well, and the bullpen staying fresh. That can go on indefinitely. One begets the next. The bullpen's fresh the next day. The bullpen's fresh the next day. This guy just pitched a gem. Now his buddy's like, oh, I got to outpitch this guy. You know, this guy's pressing the plate. His buddy's pressing the plate too. Happens all the time. Under. Same thing with overs. All right. You have a hot lineup. A hot lineup stays hot until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, this team's averaging 3.7 runs a game. During their current hot streak, they're scoring 6 runs a game. You know, until proven otherwise, they're a 6 runs a game team, but all the numbers are based on the 3.7 runs per game team. You know,
right.
Similarly, with the pitching staff, and this is where overs beget tons of overs. Okay. Starting pitching wears down, the bullpen wears down. It's just that simple. It's like, you know, it's one of these things, whatever, you know, the COVID-19 rate, you say, if this happens here, we're going to see the cases rise here. If the starting pitching wears down, the bullpen, I mean, there's no way to get around one versus the other. So here's the starting staff that gets beaten up, and now the bullpen's getting beaten up, and the lineup's hitting well, and boom. Next thing you know, you're 12-2 to the over your last 14 games. The streaks do build upon themselves. Even with sides. You know, you have a bad team, you have a last place team, and they find a little hot streak. You know,
right.
They win a couple games. Hey, guess what? Now you can bet that team again. You know, now you can ride that team for a little while, and you can catch this 400 level baseball team playing, you know, one of the stretches of the year, or maybe they're going to go 8-2 in a 10-game span. You can ride those bad teams. You can ride the elite teams too. I mean, remember what the Dodgers did? Was that 2 years ago when there were 2 consecutive years where if you rode these incredible Dodgers runs, I think it was 2, I forget if it was 1 and 2 years ago or 2 and 3 years ago. But if you rode these runs with the Dodgers, even if you're playing them on the run line, -1.5, the streaks are real in MLB. They're as real as they are in any sport, maybe more so because they're playing every day. Totals and sides. I'll say this, you don't want to step in front of them, all right? You may not want to ride them. But the guy's like, oh, well, this pitching staff is bad and the bullpen's bad and the lineup's red hot, but they've cashed 17 overs in their last 20 games, so let's start paying them under now. No.
Keep riding.
There's no do factor in MLB. You ride the streaks till they're done.
Okay. Good tip. I love that one. All right, number 5.
Let me just go one more
point. Bullet point.
And that's, baseball totals. From a side standpoint, a game's going to go, obviously, you can see a pick 'em anywhere up to, we've seen $5 favorites in some of the August and September games.
Yeah.
Totals don't have that range. Baseball totals, the lowest you'll see is 6.5. The highest you'll see usually 11.5. Mostly it's 7 through 9, 9.5. So even when 2 red hot teams face off against 2 lousy starters with busted up bullpens behind them, if it's not at Coors Field, that total's not coming 14, and maybe it should. So particularly on the over side of the equation, they don't get any higher than 11.5, and there are games where it's hard to picture it not being a slugfest. I love overs like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was tip number 5, riding streaks. Super important. You've mentioned it many times. Tip number 6, Teddy.
Let's talk about derivatives and being aware of derivatives. There was a lot of talk about derivatives in the financial marketplace following the last Great Recession. There hasn't been that much talk about derivatives in the MLB betting marketplaces, but there's lots of other ways to bet baseball. Some of this you can do to hedge. Some of this you can do in order to maximize profits where you see real opportunities. So we talk about full game sides. We talk about full game totals. Let's not forget your first 5.
First 5.
Your first 5 takes the bullpens out of the equation. You want starter versus starter? That's what you do. Series prices. Absolutely a derivative. The series prices are determined based on what they expect the 3 or 4, the 3 or 4 game set, each of the starting pitchers to be priced, and they factor in what is likely to be, which team is. When you factor in the prices of the 3 starting pitching matchups, it's easy to come up with a series price.
Right.
You don't have to bet any individual game if you bet the series, but a series price is absolutely a derivative of each individual game's money line. You can do will they, won't they score a run in the first inning. You can do team to score first. You can do team totals. There are lots of other ways to get at a game besides just betting the total or just betting the side for the full 9-inning contest. And many times you'll end up making a series of bets on a game. Yeah, I'm going to bet the over. I'm also going to bet the first 5 over. I'm going to bet they will score a run in the first inning. I'm going to bet team totals over, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of different ways you can play it other than just your standard side and total. Sometimes the derivatives are better bets. Sometimes they're bets you can make to augment your initial opinion or augment your wager.
Right.
But there's certainly something you want to be aware of when betting MLB.
Absolutely. All right. And 6 was be aware of derivatives. 7 now. This one is an interesting one, Teddy, because you wrote, know your ump. And I think a lot of people don't really think about that.
No, you have. I mean, when you're talking about umpires and weather, and in my mind, they go hand in hand. Okay. Because they're mostly totals. People are getting mostly interested in totals. The ultimate under ump used to be Hirschbeck. There was a reason Robbie Alomar spit on him. Hirschbeck's his strike zone was very, very wide, and he had an extraordinary bent over many, many years. Hirschbeck behind home plate, you auto bet the under. Okay. You can find good data out there on MLB umps. You can find percentage of strikes. You can find percentage of called strikes. You can find their record, their totals record. You can find their sides record. You don't want to overemphasize this info. But look, a narrow strike zone with a pitcher who gets frustrated is a problem. For instance, Trevor Bauer. When you find an ump whose style does not correlate to the pitcher or who that he's going against, or a pitcher, you have a hothead pitcher and an ump that doesn't call strikes. That's not a pitcher I want in that game. And then of course weather goes with umps because umpire data and weather data are going to point you in a totals direction. And look, there's a lot of bad info out there. Even weather, MLB weather, there's bad info, consistently bad info from one website to the next. A 10-mile-an-hour wind blowing out isn't an automatic over bet. All right. I've seen overs get pounded. The wind's blowing out at 30 miles an hour. Yeah, it's a couple of sinker ballers, and the ball's going to stay on the ground the whole game. And the total gets bet from 9 to 10.5, and lo and behold, they score 8 runs between them because the ball never got in the air. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to ump and weather. Be aware of bad info and be aware what mattered. When the wind's blowing out at 30 miles an hour, it means something. When the wind's blowing out, 10 to 15 occasional gusts, it doesn't necessarily mean that much. When an ump has a long-term track record of overs, that's meaningful. When an ump had a long-term track record of overs, but last year he was 18-12 to the under, maybe it's not so meaningful. So, it's one of those deals where be aware of it, understand it, and use it to your advantage, especially when the betting market's over. And I'm telling you, the betting markets overreact to wind like nothing else. Even a forecast of wind. The betting markets love that wind. Even in football, you see it, where the betting markets are pounding the totals under. Oh, it's going to be windy. And again, there are wind-aided home runs, and there are days if the wind's blowing out of Coors, you're not getting me betting under, But there's certainly a lot of situations, especially in pitcher-friendly ballparks, where the wind's blowing out of Petco today. No, it isn't. The wind's blowing out at Citi Field. No, it isn't. Unless it's people overreact to that a lot, and the markets overreact to that a lot.
Yeah, they definitely do. All right. Number 7 was know your umps, know your weather. And number 8, bullpens. Teddy. Bullpens.
So there's a special place in hell for relief pitchers. So a level of hell that's all, just relief pitchers. If you're a baseball bettor, you're well aware that you've cursed as an infinite number of bettors or relief pitchers into hell. Yeah. In my mind, there is nothing more important than bullpens. Bullpens and lineup current form. Okay. The prices are going to be bet on the starting pitching. Starting pitchers, going to go 5-6 innings. Many times the starting pitchers leave, both starting pitchers leave, and the game's tied or it's a 1-run game.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. Then it's your bullpen. It's not how good the starter was. Your $3 favorite is now a pick'em. The more you know, the more you'll win. You want to understand manager tendencies. What's the throwaway game in the series? Which pens can you trust? What are bet on and bet under? Which pens are getting lit up? Bet against and bet over. What's the nuance of the series? That throwaway game in the series. When you watch a team in April, and you see all the stuff that the way a manager deals with his particular bullpen, you can get a sense, this is how he's going to do it in May. This is how he's going to do it in June. Hey, the big games, here's where he's going with first guy out of the pen, then setup man, then closer. And then those guys aren't available the next day, potentially. Or, you always want to be aware when your closer's been in back-to-back games, when your setups man been in back-to-back games. The more time you spend with bullpens, the more you're going to win MLB. I swear, people spend all this time with starting pitching, and I tend to think that by May, starting pitching is usually priced correctly. Bullpens are largely ignored for most of the season. And when you get, again, my favorite combo, the hot lineup and the worn down bullpen over all day. The cold lineup, the effective bullpen, under all day. And especially when you have, you've paid enough attention that you got some nuance and you're like, boom, he used all his key arms last night. This is a throwaway game of the 3-game set. I'm going to bet against that team and I'm going to bet the over here. And you see that all the time in MLB, the nuance of a series, the nuance of a 3 or 4 game series. Bullpens. Know your bullpens. That's I keep on saying this is the most important thing. This is the most important thing. For me, nothing's more important than bullpens. Period. Riding streaks and then knowing what's going on with the bullpens.
All right. Sounds good. Knowing your bullpens is number 8. Number 9, Teddy. Almost done.
Oh, maybe. We'll see how long I go.
I know you can go on forever. Okay.
That's Mitch's makeup. You look fine.
I know. I'm sweating and it looks like I'm crying. Yeah, no. I'm okay.
Wouldn't even notice, but I promise I'll
get a real nice tan on the shoulder here.
Yeah, you're supposed to. It's Vegas in the summertime. You're supposed to be getting a nice tan on your shoulders. Number 9, watchers who know what to watch for win.
Okay.
The MLB betting markets, again, you're talking about professional bettors. They are not watching the game. They are involved in the advanced metric side of the equation at the end of the end. They're only watching a live bet. Mm-hmm. All right. When you watch games and you listen to the announcers, you pick stuff up.
Yeah.
Is there aces capable of winning without their A stuff? Are there second-tier pitchers capable of winning without their A stuffs? Is their lineup taking good, patient at-bats? The local announcers, the home team announcers know all the nuance. I don't want the national broadcast. I want the local broadcast, but the local broadcasts are worth their weight in gold. And if you spend time watching baseball every night, it's going to help. It's going to help a lot. And you're going to get another sense. You're going to learn more about the teams, more about their managerial tendencies, et cetera, et cetera. So remember, the wise guys aren't watching. You're watching. That's your edge. Mm-hmm. And it is a legitimate edge that you have over them. They're basing on stats, and you're not. Basing entirely on stats, and you're putting some nuance into the equation. So, watchers who know what to watch for can win.
Short and simple. I like that one. All right, number 10, Teddy.
Well, number 10, let's see. Give me a sip.
Well, just sip. It's fine.
I am, but then that slurping noise, it doesn't.
Wait, is that coffee or is that Jameson? What is in the cup?
Yeah, so I didn't do one of those deals where I'm like, I saw the one with the lady that poured the wine in the coffee cup. No, it's just I drink tea. I'm a tea drinker. It's a tea with a splash of milk.
Oh, very British of you, Ted.
I lived in Scotland, and that's where I picked it up.
I would like to know
for a year. I wasn't there forever, but I spent a year in Scotland, and I picked up tea with milk, and that's still my that's my beverage of choice.
Oh,
a wee cup of tea.
Yeah, I've never tried that. Okay, now number 10, Teddy.
No, let's talk about tea.
Let's talk about tea and milk.
All right. Parlays and run lines, and I put the quote. They're sucker bets.
Yes.
I'm not a parlay fan in MLB. I don't know. Everyone loves the idea. Here, let's find 5 favorites and parlay them all together, and we'll make a little profit on it.
Mm-hmm.
No. Just no. Parlays where you can find correlation are wonderful. Mm-hmm. Side and total correlated, the book will let you make it. Great. When you start saying, I'm going to bet this $3 favorite and this $2 favorite because I don't want to lay $3 and $2. I want to put them together. There's no, from a betting standpoint, it's not a positive expectation to take to take your 2 teams and parlay 2 big favorites and parlay them together. From a winning or emotional standpoint, it doesn't do you any good. From a math standpoint, it doesn't do you any good. You're taking unrelated events and putting them in together and saying, all right, well, if all these cash, I got a decent score. And then we get a huge score with the $3 favorites. Mm-hmm. I'm not a parlay fan in MLB. 2-teamer, maybe. More than a 2-teamer, more, no. That's not my thing. Run lines, And it's not my thing because I look at the profit that the books make off these, and it's very clear when it comes to MLB, sports books clean up on the parlay bettors, and they struggle against the wise guy bettors.
Oh, okay.
The parlays don't do well in MLB. The whole percentage is extraordinary.
Right.
So I'm not a fan of the parlays. Run lines are a different story. And run lines, a lot of people call them sucker bet. I disagree.
Right.
It's priced if a run line is a point spread and a money line put together. You're laying 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
There are two factors in the equation. When you want to lay with the favorite, is the lineup hot? Is the bullpen getting out? So the lineup's hot and the bullpen's getting out. You can absolutely play a run line.
Yeah.
You can't play the run line when the lineup's not hot or the bullpen's not getting out. But you can, given though in those two situations, absolutely play run line. Run line on the dog. I don't know any casual bettor plays a run line plus 1.5. You know? Nobody does it. None. There are dumber strategies to make than that one. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
And if you want to play some of the contrarian games, some of the reverse line movement games, some of that kind of taking plus 1.5 with some dogs, betting against the public, they're dumber. Again, there's worse strategies than that. But if you're playing exclusively parlays and run lines, you're going to be in trouble. They can be a piece of your betting arsenal. They should not be the centerpiece of your betting arsenal.
Right. Absolutely. All right. 10 was parlays and run lines. Now, Teddy, I see you wrote number 11 down, even though this says 10 tips for MLB betting. What's number 11 that you have for us?
This one goes to 11. And if you don't know that, Google it. It's old, but it's still funny. This one goes to 11. Okay, so of all the sports, and I wrote this last because it has to be the way we end this. Of all the sports, MLB is the ultimate marathon, not a sprint season. We talk about that in basketball. We talk about that in MLB. There are games every single day.
Yes.
In a normal year from the end of March through the end of October. Every day. Multiple games. Okay. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. It's not about making as much, not that it's not about making as much money as you can in April. It is about making as much money as you can in April. But recognize that there's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be hot streaks and cold streaks. There's going to be good days and bad days. You're going to suffer bad beats. You're going to win some games on bad beats. You're going to have a stretch where you can't believe how bad your luck is. You're going to have a stretch where you believe how good your luck is. MLB is a marathon. All of those things will happen almost inevitably. And you need to be psychologically prepared for the marathon element of it, not of the sprint. Because it's not about making a quick profit. MLB is about grinding it out day in, day out. And that's the nature of baseball and baseball betting. So I thought that was important to end on. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a grind, and it's a long grind. All that said, it can and should be a profitable grind, hopefully, if you follow some of these tips.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And you know what? The whole, it's not a spring to when you go out to bars and you want to have it last long. It's a marathon sprint. That's so a good thing. So, thank you so much for your insight, for your time. That is all we have. Ken tips betting MLB. Teddy _ and we talk at WagerTalk on Twitter and subscribe to WagerTalk TV on YouTube. Everybody.